Well, I'd reached the stage where I realized people are not going to adopt the technologies unless you teach them about the technologies. People like myself, and probably years to come, we get older and eventually we fade away. And if you don't do something about bringing in new, fresh lighting engineers, lighting designers, we're going to be in a very sorry state. So I developed the course on the building block principle, just like building a house. You need a good foundation, and everything that they learn in a module, and there are 30 modules altogether, they take that information, that knowledge with them every step of the way.
All right, Phil Hammond, welcome.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to meet you. We haven't physically met ourselves face to face, but I've heard your name. You were featured on David Gilby's list of lighting heroes. And we as the virtual light design community have now decided to go a bit deeper into finding out who this lighting hero is. So here we are. You're in South Africa, in Cape Town. I'm in Perth. And what I wanted to do over the next half hour, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, whatever it will take, is to get a bit of an in-depth background of who is Phil Hammond, where does he come from, and how has he reached the state where he's in today. You've obviously been around for a long, long time, so maybe you can give a quick introduction about where you were born and your early childhood days and how you got into lighting.
Yeah, well, I was born 75 years ago in a place called East London, which is in South Africa, but it's up the East Coast. And I lived all my life there. I met my wife there, and our sons were also born in East London, and we all went to the same school at different times, obviously, and a very well-known boys' school, Selborne College, named after the Earl of Selborne in the UK. Initially, I worked for my late father, traveling, selling soft goods as a young man. I was married in 1971, on the 7th of July, 1971. So if you look at it,
remember.
in both directions, it looks the same, forwards and backwards. And we have 3 sons. My eldest son lives in Johannesburg. He's in information technology. My second son lives in Madrid. And my youngest son, Daniel, he's here at the moment, but he goes back to Spain. He lives in Vigo, which is just above Portugal.
All right.
I started in lighting in 1971, the same year that I got married.
All right.
And in 1974, the late managing director of Thorn EMI Lighting decided that I had some potential somewhere along the line, and he enrolled me at London South Bank University in England. And there I completed a 2-year Bachelor of Illumination Engineering course and graduated cum laude, and came back to South Africa, and I've been in lighting ever since.
But what attracted you in lighting in the first place? Why did you choose lighting?
It was one of those things. Our family business represented Thorn EMI Lighting on an agency basis, and that was how I really got into it, because it was in the interest of the family business to make a success of it.
Yeah.
And
it's always
so
fascinating how people get into lighting. It's so different for different people.
it was a very boring field in those days compared to what it is today with LED technology and
Yeah.
all the other technologies that go hand in glove with LED technology. But nevertheless, it was very interesting doing lighting design on an architectural drawing board uh, with
Yes, I remember that.
your pen, your clutch pen, and
Yeah.
a slide rule, doing your calculations with a slide rule. If I talk to students today about slide rules, they think I've lost it. So, but anyway, they have no idea what a slide rule is. Uh, but anyway, it's very interesting. And then the transition came to in 2007 to LED technology when I went to visit a client, and he was very proud of the fact he'd installed LED lighting in his showroom, and they were those horrible, very, very, very dull blue lights that you couldn't see your hand in front of you.
Yeah.
They were so bad. And that's when I started studying everything there was to know about LED lighting, the technology, how they made everything about it. Because I said there's no ways they could bring out something like that and call it a light, and it didn't work. And
Yeah,
obviously
yeah, yeah.
those were nasty cheapies. And that was it. So it's gone from then. And we just we're passionate about what we do. We love it all.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
my youngest son, Daniel, is in the practice with me.
Oh, that's nice.
And he's now also qualified as an illumination engineer.
Didn't you feel that you had to relearn everything you thought you knew about lighting when you started to apply LEDs? I mean, I remember that I knew when it was an incandescent bulb or fluorescent tube or halogen, I knew what it was going to do. But
Yes.
with halogen, I felt like I had to start all over again.
Yeah, the old technologies were totally predictable.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
could do it with your eyes closed. It was if you knew how to do. In those days, we used the room index method,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
which is
remember
now
that.
being
Yeah.
replaced with the lumen method. So so you go on. But nevertheless, yes, when LED came along, all of a sudden it just was so different, and I couldn't understand it. How can you have a high pressure sodium delivering such high lumen output, and the equivalent LED is a fraction of the lumen output, and yet
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
brighter?
yeah,
It didn't make sense to me.
yeah,
There was
yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
wrong. So yes, you're quite right. Had to learn all over again,
You have to
and I
relearn.
discovered
Yes,
it.
yes.
And I continually study. I'm still studying because you never know it all. I think the day you die, you still don't know it all. But anyway,
Well, it's always we're always learning every day, right?
every day.
Life, yeah, yeah. So you started with Thorn EMI, is that correct?
Yes, yes,
And so you obviously they saw something in you and they said, okay, Phil, this is you're gonna join the company. And what was sort of the task that you got in terms of, I started with Philips, by the way, before I had my own practice, and I had to learn the ropes. I had to do first some research, and then I got my first projects, and then gradually, you to climb the corporate ladder, because obviously it's a corporation. It's not the same as your own little practice. So
correct.
how did that go for you?
It was quite exciting because um, I was in an area that was fairly uh, considerably different to the likes of Johannesburg or Cape Town. It was a much smaller area. It represented a fraction of perhaps the national uh, budget, marketing budget for Thorn lighting. But nevertheless, um, it was a real challenge, and I was very successful at it. And in those days, we still had uh, what they referred to as homelands, independent homelands that the old government set up. We had the Ciskei on the one side and the Transkei on the other side. They were supposedly independent. So each of them established different industrial areas, and we dominated in those areas. We had competitors, Philips, another company called Lascon Lighting, who were big in those years in South Africa, but I actually dominated. I secured the bulk of the business. In one area, there were 280 factories. I did 240 of them.
Right. So you did both project as well as looking after the factories, and it seems like you had a big task on your desk.
I didn't work in the factory.
Okay.
I used to sell to electrical wholesalers and lighting distributors, and also projects. So I cut my teeth on projects in those areas at a very early stage.
Right.
And then eventually,
sorry. No, I just wanted to understand if you had a team around you, obviously, because
no,
if it was just you.
Just me.
Wow.
Just me. So it was a big challenge, and it meant that I met that, and in 1980, I won a trip. Thorn Lighting had an incentive for their sales staff, and it went right the way up to a trip overseas for a month, traveling wherever you wanted to go.
Wow.
And then the trip just above mine was a 3-month trip, which involved flying on Concorde and the QE2 and all those sorts of things.
Oh.
No, I didn't go. I didn't win that one.
Oh.
I won the trip, which I planned. I went to Spain, from Spain to America, spent a month in America, traveling all around, across to Canada, and ended up in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro, and then flew home. But just my wife and I. And it was a marvelous trip. I mean, and they had other incentives thereafter as well.
Yeah.
But a very dynamic company until eventually the political situation in South Africa, and they were amongst others, those who disinvested. So Jules Thorne took the decision to disinvest from South Africa, which was a great pity. But nevertheless, we were still able to carry on until along came LED. And when LED came along,
when you say you carried on, was it still under the Thorne banner?
Yes, but from the UK.
Okay. From the UK, okay, yeah. I see.
So their factories in South Africa, they sold off. They sold the one factory to Lascon, one of the competitors. That was the fittings factory. And the light sources, they sold that to it wasn't Osram, it wasn't. Yeah, it was one in the team who owned the glass factory in Port Elizabeth.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, so that's how they left South Africa.
So from your trips abroad, did you get a different impression? Because I've also traveled a lot, and when you travel, you get sort of exposed to different cultures, obviously, and you obviously went to Europe, you went to South America, and all that. Did it felt like they had a different way of approaching lighting, or you felt like it felt very similar? I can imagine that different countries may have a slightly different way of doing things. Did you feel any difference?
America was different. I found that was different. Their approach is slightly different to ours. Plus the fact you had to realize that you're working in a different voltage, different frequency, because they work at 60 hertz, we work at 50. So
yes,
those little differences. So you look at their product and you say, well, yeah, it's nice, but it wasn't much use to us. from that point of view. But where I found it interesting was in places like Malaysia, Hong
Mm.
Kong, Taiwan, Japan, and in Europe also.
Mm.
I found that very interesting. It's not unlike what we do. We all basically approach it much the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, it's the clients and the consulting engineers, the electrical engineers, who perhaps are the ones who are the most difficult. The client is very responsive, but the engineers are very slow to adopt the
Mm.
technologies. So they
Yes.
adopted LED, but all the accompanying technologies that make LED such a great product and so much more efficient and so on, they
Mm.
just are so backward. They're just not adopting the technologies, whereas we do. We do loads of
Mm.
projects using the new technologies, power over Ethernet, visible light communication,
All these things, yeah.
indoor positioning
So
systems, the whole lot.
yeah, yeah, yeah. All that's part of it right now.
And it's fun.
But it's fun. Yes, I sometimes say there's never have been a dull moment with lighting because the evolution from the old incandescent bulb and fluorescent tube till where we are today has been amazing. There's always
Yes,
something new coming up, and we are yet still very far from the end. It still keeps going and giving.
it, that's right.
So that has always, yeah,
And we don't
it
know
has
what's
been
going to come
amazing.
beyond LED. What's going to be beyond LED?
Yeah, absolutely, and there will be something for sure.
Yes,
So your projects were mostly in South Africa. Do I understand that correctly?
yes, we've done outside of South Africa.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
we've done one project in Spain. We've done in Zanzibar, various
right.
different places.
Hmm. Okay, okay, cool. So you also gradually got into teaching. I understand. You told me earlier that that's one of the things that you do. Tell me a bit about how you got into that.
Well, I'd reached the stage where I realized uh, people are not going to adopt the technologies unless you teach them about the technologies.
Yeah.
And people like myself, and probably years to come, like you, Martin, we get older and eventually we fade away. And if you don't do something about bringing in new, fresh lighting engineers, lighting designers, we're going to be in a very sorry state. And I'm talking specifically in South Africa. So I developed the course on the building block principle, just like building a house. You need a good foundation, and I start them off with a good foundation. And everything that they learn in a module, and there are 30 modules altogether, they take that information, that knowledge with them every step of the way. So when they're in module 16, they need all of the information in order to do 16 successfully. So that's the basis that they worked on. Initially, it started as a correspondence course, which was incredibly heavy work. I never stopped working. 7 days a week, very long hours, downloading, printing the assignments, marking them, scanning them, uploading them. The cost in laser printing cartridges was astronomical.
Yeah, I
So
can
I decided
imagine.
that I looked for software, eventually found suitable software, and with that software, started to go forward. And it's been an amazing journey. Our courses are 100% online. Um, they are very strongly resourced with video content, additional documentary content, and so on. And once a month, on the first Wednesday of every month, I have a student support session. It's
Right.
absolutely free. They don't pay. They pay to enroll for the courses, but the session's free. And in that session, I don't do anything. I don't prepare a thing. And they
Right.
are free to ask any questions on any of the content, because obviously the students are at different points, because there's not a single start date. They start on the day that they enroll.
Right.
That's the beauty of an online course.
Yeah.
And they are also able to discuss lighting topics, something they might have come across. And so it's a 1.5 hour session free of charge. So, and it's
Interesting.
well attended, and
So
so many interesting things come out.
yes, I always feel that you learn as much from the people that you teach as the other way around, right? So that's really
100%.
gratifying, I feel. Yeah. So what's the demographic of the sort of people that you teach? I mean, are they all younger people? Because I can imagine that there's all people that are of maybe an older age that are still interested to get into lighting, or what are the reasons behind some of them to want to learn? They're all from Africa, or because it's an online course, I can imagine they can come from all parts of the world. Tell us a bit about your students
Right.
and how that demography looks like.
Initially, obviously, it started in South Africa.
Yep.
That's where the starting point was. But
Yeah.
subsequently, I'm an educator member of the International Association of Lighting Design in Chicago. So I'm supported by them. I'm supported by the Institution of Lighting Professionals, which is my mother institution, as it so happens, in the UK. And I'm a member, obviously, of that institution as well. But I have students from Honolulu in Hawaii, in the West,
Wow.
right across to Auckland, Wellington in New Zealand, and of course it includes Australia, in
Yeah,
Sydney.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I've got 2 students in Sydney, and everything in between. I've got a load of students from India, Taiwan, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Spain, Italy, Denmark, Sweden, Finland. Student in Finland is 63 years old. I've got a student in
Ah, you see?
Senegal, a retired engineer in Senegal, and he's 60, I think 64
Right.
now. He was 63 last year, so 64 this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, throughout America, South America, Colombia, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Brazil, Uruguay,
Right.
Mexico.
So
Uh,
all
there's,
ages,
there's
all
no,
quarters of the world.
yeah, and there's no limit. There's
All right.
to who enrolls. So I've got about
Right.
65% of the students are now foreign.
Wow.
So
Fantastic.
the
So I
course has
think
become very well known, and it's equivalent to a bachelor degree.
fantastic. So is there a website they can go to find out about the courses?
Yes, there is, and that website is HTTPS. So it's a secure website.
Yep.
Very important. / www.BHA School of Lighting, one long word,
Yep.
.co.za.
Fantastic. I mean, we may as well plug it since we are talking to you, and
Thank you very much. Yes.
so it will be broadcast anyhow. This recording later at a later stage. But it's good to understand because as a community, we also try to reach out to all the educational organizations. There are plenty in the world. There's many that do that, and there's something for everybody. I'm doing some classes sometimes as well, but I haven't reached the stage yet where I'm doing that 100%. It's more something that I do on the side at the moment. But you know, the older you get, the more experience you have, and obviously it's nice to be able to share that and to pass it on to the next generation. And I think that's one of the things that you are doing very gracefully. So that's really nice, and we are happy to promote that. So you're still doing that more or less full time? Do you still have time for projects, or is this what you're now doing as your main work?
It's about 50-50.
Right.
I don't do that many projects. I really, if I do a project, I focus on the exterior projects. I'm doing a project at the moment just out of interest. You know, renewable energy is a very important thing in South Africa because we have scheduled blackouts from time to time. I'm not sure when our next one is due. We're fortunate.
I hope not during this presentation.
No, you don't have to worry. We've got a very big inverter system that looks after our whole house. So we don't have any outages. All right. Yeah. But, you know, it's an investment we had to make. It was just getting very unpleasant. I went through a stage where I used little LED lamps scattered around my desk to provide light to do webinars, because I do a webinar once a month. Every month I present a webinar on a variety of topics. So I had to rely on little rechargeable LED devices to light up the room. But that's past. So fortunately, you don't have to worry. We well looked after. But we also teach Relux. We developed our own Relux desktop manuals. So we have 4 manuals, 3 interior applications, and then one final one, which is the exterior applications. I wrote that, and Daniel wrote the 3 interior ones. So we're very proud of that because that's proprietary manuals, and we're the only ones that do a full course on Relux in South Africa.
Right.
But my students
For those who don't know, can you sort of explain what the Relux is?
Well, Relux Desktop is a very advanced lighting design software, which can do anything, and it does visualizations and so on very accurately. In fact, I'm doing a webinar on the 20th of April on Dialux Evo versus Relux Desktop.
Okay.
And it's my own opinion, but it's also expert opinion, because every 2 years roughly, they evaluate all the software that's available. And, you know, there are like 23 different software suites available to do lighting design in the world. It's absolutely crazy, but I think the major 2 are Relux and Dialux Evo. Of course, there's AGI 32, but that's paid a substantial license fee to pay every month. So and these others are past it now.
Okay, interesting. So you obviously have gone through a lifetime of experience doing lighting projects, teaching. What I find also interesting to know is the challenges that people come across, because we can tell things in a beautiful way, but there's always obstacles along the way in life, things that we need to overcome, balances maybe with family life. You know, financial issues that that sometimes you're faced with, because just doing lighting design doesn't mean you understand the business of lighting design. Is there something you can share from your experience that could be a valuable insight for our viewers?
Yeah, I think I went through a phase where I worked very long hours. So that obviously has an impact on family. So once I'd got the online system running, immediately the benefit was you had time to be with your family.
Yeah.
So those were the advantages there. But also at the same time, some of the obstacles that you come across, some of the obstacles you got fellow professionals because they don't believe what you're telling them about some of the technologies because they've never bothered to go and learn or read up about the technologies. So that sometimes becomes an obstacle. But very often we work directly for clients. Um, and I've got a super client. We've been working for him for the last 2 years. And in the factory, we'll be go through to about 2025, probably still doing work, bringing the whole factory up to standard. I'm talking about compliance with standards, but also bring it up with all the new technologies. He's very excited about new technologies and he buys into them. So,
Right.
so yeah, and it's a very successful company, and everything they make in South Africa they export. So, it
Okay.
makes them very successful. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's one of the things. But the other is sourcing product. You know, the bulk of the product comes from China. There is product available from Europe, but when you go and check it, it's actually made in
They're
China.
made in China. Yeah.
So,
I know.
you know, so to find the quality product has been one of the major obstacles. And we have found a supplier, or we've got about 3 suppliers with real quality product. And I've asked them for every single test report that you can possibly list. And I teach engineers how to include all of that in any of their requests for proposals or tender documents to make sure that they don't get caught with substandard product. That is a big obstacle to make
Yeah.
sure that you don't get involved in substandard product
Yeah.
because then the longevity of LED suddenly gets compromised because stuff fails long before you
Yeah.
expect it to fail.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more because one of the things that is also important is the relationship you have with these people because they may have the best product in the world, but if they don't have the people to support it, there's always something. There may be, I don't know, a failing product or something. But so you need the team behind the products also to be in a good relationship with because there's always something happening and being able to pick up the phone and say, hey, we've got a problem, help me resolve it, even if it's a good product, it's really important, right? So, yeah.
If it's possible, you're 200% correct
Yeah.
in that statement. You're
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
it's so very important. But it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of very exciting product out there,
Yeah.
but it's not product you'll find on the shelf in a local hardware store.
No, no. What would you think is your biggest project success? Is there one that really stands out for you that this is really the one I'm the most proud of?
Yeah, it's hard to single them out. We've had some great ones. A
Yeah.
hotel in Zanzibar, which is a huge project. I mean, really big, including um, a theme park, a water theme park,
Oh,
standing wave pool, uh, a marina, um, mangrove swamps. I mean, it was
wow.
absolutely massive. It was about in the order of about 15 to 20 square kilometers, and
Whoa. Yeah.
the whole space had to be lit. beachfront cabanas, all sorts. And that was a great product. It took, when I ran the calculation for the outdoor lighting alone,
Yeah.
my computer ran for about 43 hours.
Oh, that must have been in the older days, no?
Well, it's massive. It's massive.
Yeah, yeah,
It was, yeah, it was a few years ago, but it was a
yeah,
huge project.
yeah,
Yeah, so that really good. Multiple swimming pools, health spas, you name it. It had absolutely everything.
yeah. Have you ever been back there?
No,
Yeah, because that's
but we
sometimes the thing.
still,
Like we do something, we design, and then we sort of give the baby away. It's done, and then you sort of never get back in touch with that project. And being able to go back sometimes and see what the durability of your design was can be also quite informative and very meaningful. I've had a few of those that I could go back a few years later and see how it stood the test of time. But most of the time, once it's delivered, that's it. You never, you
that's
can
right.
maybe see some things on the internet or something, but yeah,
Yeah, you quite. It was one of those funny things, getting back to see them.
yeah, yeah,
But maybe one day. I'll never say no.
yeah,
But
never say no.
there isn't time. We're busy. We're on the go
Yeah,
all of the time.
yeah.
Um, it's
Now,
I've tried very hard to get a Tuesday and a Thursday afternoon off to go and play bowls. I'm
yeah,
a keen bowler, but it doesn't. It usually doesn't work out. I might get a
no,
Tuesday, or the weeks might go by. I don't get either. So,
yeah.
and I don't
Uh,
mind being busy.
Yeah, no, but it gives a great amount of satisfaction. But the ability to take time off, I generally don't work on Fridays. I'm trying to keep that off so that I've got a long weekend. But most of the time it doesn't really work out. I'm still doing some work, but building that in the later stages of your career, I think is really important. Now, both you and me are from the older generation. What do you make of social media and how that interacts with your daily life as a lighting professional? Is that something that you use a lot, or is it something that you see happening in the distance, but it's not your thing?
Um, if I look at some of the social media, I mean, Facebook, for example, I use that mainly to keep contact with school friends. I mean, it's many years ago. Those who are still living, um, I just follow school friends. Yes, I see Daniel, my son. He looks after the social media aspects, and you've no doubt seen that on LinkedIn and so on. In the same way that I write for David in his
Hmm.
uh, little entry on LinkedIn, because I think that's fantastic to bring people to light that we know and we've connected with
Hmm.
over the years. Very important. LinkedIn, I find, is a very good one, but
Hmm.
even there, some nonsense has crept in.
Oh yes.
You look at some of the things, statements people make about lighting, and you think, well, my goodness, they obviously didn't learn it. They picked it up
Yeah.
somewhere and actually still don't know what it means.
Yeah.
But it will happen all the time. It's like fake news they talk of. Sometimes it happens on social media as well,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and probably
It does. It
particularly
does.
things like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those are, and I don't follow Instagram or Twitter, so I
But
leave that
it's
to
becoming
Daniel.
it it is an important tool, and you're a bit like me because Ingmar does our social media. To me, also, I try a little bit, but it's the younger generation that is really much more
Yeah.
apt and more familiar with how to do that. Absolutely. So, what's in store for you for the future? What do you have specific plans still that you things that you it's on your bucket list of to do, maybe within lighting or outside lighting?
Well, in anything, I've still got 25 years to get to the 100. So
Yeah, still plenty of time.
plenty of time, yeah. So I'm young. I'm young and
Yeah,
fit.
yeah.
But yeah, I'd still like to do some more traveling. Uh, we've
Hmm.
we've done the Baltic cruise in 2014 for 2 weeks. We've done the Adriatic. Uh, I want to do the fjords. So there's still a lot of things to do.
Right,
Um,
right, right.
and probably it's for as long as I can travel,
Hmm.
because I think you get to a stage where you no longer are up to taking the long trips.
No, I know what
Because
you're talking about. I
South Africa is not a hub, much like Australia is
no,
not a hub.
no,
Uh,
no, no.
we are very distant, to get anywhere.
Hmm.
So if you want to go to Europe, it's a long trip. It's a
Yeah,
long
yeah, yeah,
flight, uh,
yeah,
and the travel is the part that actually tires you. Initially, it's a very exciting thing to do, to
yeah,
travel.
yeah, yeah.
But after you've done it a few times, it becomes very tiring. Being
Hmm.
there is nice, but it's getting there and
The
back.
trip to it, yes, yes. I know what
Yeah,
you're talking about. I used to be in an airplane every week. But I mean, since COVID, that was really that sort of short-circuited that whole thing. It was like a circuit breaker, and I've hardly traveled since COVID. I still will go and do it a bit, but definitely not at the same intensity as I used to do it in the past.
yeah.
Now,
I used to do
I get it.
lighting. I used to do lighting workshops. So I traveled extensively within Southern Africa. Uh, I was regularly away for 3 days at a time in a week doing workshops,
Hmm,
speaking to people of 50 to 100 uh, about lighting.
hmm,
I did 150 workshops uh, from 2012 till 2017, 18. And then I said, that's enough. So now I do webinars, which I really enjoy because one, I research the content every time to make sure it's high standard and so on. And again, the attendees are probably 65% foreign attendees
hmm.
from all over the world. So it's very exciting. So yeah, you've got to be at the top of your game uh, to be able to speak to people from all over the world.
Abs-
Uh,
yes.
if it can't be second rate, because if it is,
Yeah.
you'll quickly lose a following. But anyway,
Yeah.
so it's not really
Yeah.
about a following because it's free of charge. It doesn't cost anything. Um, the software we use is very expensive software
Yeah.
from Poland, in fact. So we have license fee to pay every month. But
Hmm.
it's really fantastic. I use it for meetings and for webinars.
Yeah, but you're totally right. In order to present 100%, you need to know 150%. I mean, that's the only way you can deliver a good webinar, a good presentation. You need to know more than what you're actually going to share. Also, specifically, if afterwards you're in a question answer sessions and things like that. Now, I think I got a good grasp of what your passions are. What do you think will be the legacy of Phil Hammond if you look back over your career?
I think the legacy will still be the BHA School of Lighting. Daniel, I hope, will carry that on. I'm sure.
Mm.
Uh, and I'd at least like to think that the day I go, I can say, well, I did all right. I did a good thing
Yeah,
in my life. I taught people
yeah.
about lighting. So
I can I I can see that. From the whole vibes I've picked up in this discussion, I can totally feel that. You had a great run, and I think you're still running.
Oh,
Still
very
a lot
much
of
so.
things that still a lot of things that you want to do. I would like to close off with a rhetorical question. Is there something in your mind that you would like to ask me or ask anybody out in our community? Something that's maybe bothering you or something that you would like to put out there? Um, is there such a question that lingers in your mind?
A question that I often ask, and I've asked that of David, and I'm asking you too, Martin.
Yeah.
What is what is passion? How do you define passion? Because I sense in you, uh,
Mm.
just doing the VLDC,
Yeah.
uh, looking after that, you have to do, there has to be a passion to do it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'd be
Absolutely.
very boring and very dry.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
asking you, what is passion? What is
Yeah.
your passion?
Great question. And I think the question, the answer to that is not necessarily a very concise or explicit thing. To me, it's like it. You get out of bed in the morning and you're like, all right, what am I going to do today? It's like what has driven me through all obstacles and challenges is the fact that I love doing what I'm doing. Right? I think it's the love for what you're doing. Also, the unexpected things. I always say, always expect the unexpected. And I think in our world of lighting, and certainly if you do projects all over the world, there's always something new. The whole development of technology, always something, some exciting. So there's nothing boring, I feel, in what we are doing, at least not in my environment. So that excitement of what is this day gonna bring me, the gratifying responses you get by sharing your knowledge, certainly at this stage in my life, and I guess it's the same for you. It's very gratifying to see that people pick up on your knowledge and your experience and being able to share that, even if it's one person that comes back to you and says, oh, when you said this and this, that gave me so much motivation to continue or things like that. So I think that stimulates your passion. Passion is not a thing. It's a continuous growing and evaluating thing. It's probably a journey. I don't know. It really gets you out of bed with excitement in the morning, I think. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think
that's
you
how
put
I
it
feel
very,
about passion.
Martin, I think you put it beautifully.
Yeah,
It's what gets you out of bed in the morning.
absolutely.
Really,
Absolutely.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just think back to those terrible days, 1920, no, 2020 rather,
Yeah.
2020, when along came that thing called COVID,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden it was lockdown, and
Yeah.
everything came to a standstill. But the one thing that didn't come to a standstill, and in fact we got
Mm.
quite exceptional growth,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
students enrolling to
Yeah.
study, because now all of a sudden they
Yeah.
had time to study
Yeah.
during lockdown.
Ab-
So
Absolutely.
that was very interesting. Projects died, they literally died. And in fact, it took them a long time to just start getting going. This year, projects are running all the
Mm.
time. I mean, we're constantly getting calls. Can you help? Can you do this? A consulting engineer contacted Daniel this morning and had a long chat with him. Can we help and do a particular design for him? They would normally have done it themselves, but their entire office closed down because of COVID. He's
Yeah.
working from home now, one
Yeah.
engineer.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you think back to those times and we think, well, here we are. We came
Yes.
through it. We
Yeah.
came through it all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, there were things that we suffered by because we didn't have lighting design. We worked for one company on a retainer. and the retainer died, and it was never resurrected, and yet we've got
Yeah.
through, and we are smiling,
Yeah.
and we're doing well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's what passion does also. You always find ways to stimulate your passion. That's what I found because during COVID, suddenly I've always ideas running in my mind, and not being able to do one thing opens the door to do something else.
yeah,
It's when you have this passion, you always find the juice to make it work. So,
yeah.
Phil, from one passionate man to another passionate man, thank you so much for this interview. It has been a
Thank you,
delight
Martin.
to talk to you, to get to know to you, and also to share this with our community, because I think there's a lot of things that you said maybe of great motivation to our community. So thank you very much, and I hope
Thank
that
you.
we will run into each other in real life one of these days.
Certainly, be lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Martin.
much, Phil.